This country alone could feed 800 million humans, which means we could eradicate world hunger with just the grain that's fed to animals in this country alone.
Well, here's how that's actually not necessarily the case. A global population census estimated that in order for the entire global population to switch to an all-vegan diet, they would essentially have to adapt a one-child policy.
Yeah, now I'm really dumbfounded. Millie, did you or whoever wrote your script even bother reading your own source? What's up, guys? So this is a response video to the YouTuber millennial Millie of InfoWars. You know, that really sad excuse of a media site run by the conspiracy theorist Alex Jones and the epitome of fake news. Yeah, those guys. Throughout the video, Millie attempts to undermine the philosophical integrity of veganism by making it seem like a trendy globalist ideology for Western liberals or something like that, and it gets pretty cringy at certain times, especially when she attempts to extrapolate on research that she clearly doesn't understand to make the case that, you know, veganism is unsustainable. Anyway, her video speaks for itself, so let's just get right into it.
Now, as innocent as veganism may seem, if you actually scratch the surface, the more you'll find when you start questioning vegans and their lifestyle, it's a lot bigger than just a diet. It's actually an ideology, and to some degree, it's a cult.
Now, I know the word ideology has a negative connotation to it, but veganism is an ideology in that it's just a set of beliefs that we hold regarding animal ethics and harm reduction. But I would say it's by no means a cult. Cult does have several precise definitions regarding spurious religious beliefs and a really excessive devotion to a person or a thing, and most often when we use the term cult, we're thinking from a sociological perspective. In other words, we're talking about behavior. We define certain groups as cults if they act under the authority of a charismatic leader and in ways that are otherwise considered unethical or illegal within civilized society. Veganism is by no means a cult under this definition, so calling veganism a cult is really unhelpful. It just infuses the conversation with a lot of emotional rhetoric, and it isn't helpful.
Most vegans that I've talked to actually acknowledge the fact that they could not live and sustain a vegan diet if it weren't for global trade and the fact that they have access to fruits and vegetables that are produced on other continents.
First of all, it is entirely possible to eat a balanced vegan diet consisting of foods that are produced solely in the United States. And while it's becoming difficult to eat a national diet, this isn't specific to nor the result of the vegan lifestyle. In reality, the United States is choosing to import products because of the cost of cheap labor and the wide availability of products in foreign countries. We choose to purchase an exorbitant amount of coffee from Latin American and African countries because they're far cheaper to purchase from these countries than it would be to produce them here. The reality is that the United States does not have a climate that favors coffee production at the level that it would require to sustain ourselves, at least at the level that we continue to drink coffee. Also, just a fun fact for you, Millie, America imports far more seafood annually than either fruits or vegetables. The fact is, we wouldn't have many of the foods that are currently readily available if it weren't for global trade.
If we didn't have globalization and global trade, you could not actually sustain yourself off of a vegan diet if you only had the local produce that was seasonal available to you in this northern region.
I couldn't tell you what seasonal fruit and veg and if I could do it all year round, but I don't have to worry about that because we can sustainably live by getting foods from different parts of the country and from different states. So we can get avocados from California and take them to Cleveland, and that's fine, and we can do that sustainably as well.
Again, a national vegan diet is plausible, but it probably wouldn't be as diverse as a diet that consists of foods produced from all over the world, and we wouldn't be able to eat certain products as often. Vegans do certainly have globalism to thank for a lot of our fruits and vegetables and grains. And likewise, you have globalism to thank for your seafood, red meat, sugar, coffee, chocolate, cocoa, and your fruits and vegetables as well. In fact, I don't quite understand your aversion to globalization. So far, you haven't provided any evidence that economic globalization or that international trade is harmful or that a global vegan diet is unsustainable.
This country alone could feed 800 million humans, which means we could eradicate world hunger with just the grain that's fed to animals in this country alone.
Well, here's how that's actually not necessarily the case. A global population census estimated that in order for the entire global population to switch to an all-vegan diet, they would essentially have to adapt a one-child policy.
Yeah, now I'm really dumbfounded. Millie, did you or whoever wrote your script even bother reading your own source? The article that you referenced is almost entirely irrelevant. It discusses population growth and rates of urbanization in different countries and doesn't mention veganism at all. In fact, the one section regarding human carrying capacity mentions that we can maintain subsistence levels for 50% more people by growing enough grains to feed them a vegetarian diet, literally contradicting what you are saying. Literally in the screen cap of your own video. Did you even read your own screen cap? Also, this screen cap is just a graph depicting world population prospects throughout 2050. The only reason that China's long-standing one-child policy is mentioned here is that the one-child policy has given China a population structure that is similar to developed countries, one that has a decreasing birth rate and an increasingly aging population. Again, this has nothing to do with vegan diets. What you're doing here is really, really dishonest and just unethical. You're not just misrepresenting the data, you're lying about the data. You're making up your own idea about what this article says, and it's really embarrassing.
And with our current global population, you'd have to essentially take all of the arable land, all of the good farmable land, and turn it into agricultural land for the production of crops and vegetables. The vast majority of that good arable farmland actually is inside the United States, and a good portion of it is in the Midwestern and Eastern area of the United States. Now, if you look in the Eastern area of the United States, you actually have a lot of development, commercial development, and homes everywhere. So you would essentially have to destroy the rights of the American people and use eminent domain to seize all of their land in order to work out a global vegan diet-based society. We would have to have Agenda 21 enacted, where everyone's forced into little cities in sky-rise buildings in order to survive in this new type society, where we would have forced resource-based controlled societies that would all be living off of a vegan diet.
Boy, how can one get so much wrong in just a couple of minutes? First of all, we would not need to convert any new land at all into farmland to produce more crops. In fact, the very article that you referenced supports this. We are already producing more than enough grains to feed the entire world round. In fact, only 55% of the world's crop calories are consumed by humans, and 36% is used for animal feed. Figures are far worse in industrialized countries like our country, the US, where only 27% is fed to humans. Millie, in the country that both of us live in, we are only directly consuming 27% of the crop calories that we produce. We would have so much more to eat if we stopped relying on animals as a source of food. And in terms of energy transfer, animal products are also horribly efficient, as I explained in this video here or here. For example, a pig must eat 5 to 9 pounds of grain to gain 1 pound of weight, and a cow must eat 6 to 27 pounds of grain to gain 1 pound of weight. Once you take into account that not even all parts of the animal is eaten, like the brain, the blood, the bones, and the tendons, then you realize that cycling crops through animals, then eating the animals, is inefficient, and is a net loss of both calories and nutrition. It's also less energy efficient, thanks to thermodynamics. In general, only about 10% of the energy consumed by one trophic level is available in the next. For example, if hares consumed 1,000 calories of plant energy, they might only be able to form 100 calories of new hair tissue. The higher up through the trophic levels that energy is transferred, from the producer to the herbivore to the omnivore to the carnivore, the greater level of energy lost.
You guys say you want to shut down farms like this that have cattle and pigs and chickens.
And what we do, we use our profits to support the Lord's work and to make a living and to take care of our health. We're very picky about what we use. Our beef and our hogs, we harvest them here. This started as a hobby with one, and you see how it ended up.
What happens to those animals? You do realize that those animals have been bred in a certain way to be used for us domestically.
As the world shifts to veganism, it will be a gradual shift, which means that the number of animals that we breed will obviously reduce accordingly as the number of vegans rises, because farmers aren't going to breed animals they know they can't sell.
So the animals will just disappear.
Right, well, so the animals that we breed, the ones that, as you rightfully admitted yourself, are natural animals who can't survive without our help, will disappear. But what that will allow is for this farmland that we have now to repopulate, for those natural ecosystems to replenish, which will allow natural wildlife to restock in those natural areas.
Farmers will adjust to this change by breeding less animals into existence and by transitioning into other more sustainable sectors of the market. Earthling Ed is correct. Eventually, supply would lower to meet demand, and with the decrease in popularity of people purchasing animal products, farmers would just breed less into existence, which would save, hundreds of thousands of animals from a lifetime of misery and brutal slaughter. And the animals that we currently have could either be consumed or turned back out to pasture, where they would graze on grasses and shrubs and insects, and some of the farmland could be converted back into forest land.
Do we really want to risk letting our domesticated animals become extinct because we just let them go based on some vegan ideology when we've taken thousands and thousands of years to breed and domesticate these animals for our use, where they can also have a benefit from us as well?
Well, given the overall harm that eating animals brings us, environmental degradation, scarcity of resources, animal suffering, antibiotic resistance, and a slew of health issues, we could produce a comparatively better world if we stopped eating animals.
Essentially calling them non-human animals because they're implying that humans are also animals.
We're animals. I mean, even if you believe in the Bible, we're still animals.
So they push that line of thinking right there, which is moral relativism, but at the same time, they try to appeal to Christian morals and ethics to try to make the argument that it's wrong to kill, therefore we should not kill animals. You're trying to use Christian morals and principles when you're talking about whether it's wrong or right to kill, but then also saying that you don't believe that we are from God and that we have certain consciousness abilities. How can you argue two separate points simultaneously that conflict with each other?
That's a good question. I believe that obviously morality in many senses is subjective in its purest form, although as humans we do have moral agency, and that's what kind of separates us from wild animals, although wild animals do demonstrate moral agency as well.
Survival of the fittest is the code of animals. So if you want to say humans are animals, humans have the right to eat other animals.
Okay, I hope that you're not implying that those of us who acknowledge humans are biologically animals, that we are somehow moral relativists. That would be hella confusing. But vegans are not appealing to religious beliefs when we assert that it's wrong to harm sentient beings without a valid justification. We just are skeptical of the idea that humans are of moral value, but animals lack this moral value so entirely that it justifies treating them in unethical ways. Rational consequentialist vegans are not saying that it's always wrong to kill animals, just like we agree that it's not always wrong to kill humans, but it's wrong to do so without a valid justification. If you claim that sentient humans have a non-trivial moral status, but sentient farmed animals lack the status, then there must be some morally relevant difference between the two that is important enough to justify this radical difference in moral status. If you can't name a morally relevant difference between the two that would justify the difference in treatment, then you must agree that farmed animals have non-trivial moral status.
And a lifestyle that actually could not be sustained in real life if it weren't solely dependent on technology. In the developed world, veganism is a luxury diet that many trendy liberals can enact. But in reality, in most other countries, it's not anywhere near practical or realistic for them to enact a vegan diet.
Yep, and so is chowing down on lobster and steak and fried calamari, but I don't see you complaining about that. Many of the animal products that we consume in Western countries are also considered luxury items to those in poor countries. You need to provide more of a justification for us to continue eating animal products despite the harm that they bring in the Western world, where fruits, vegetables, and grains are far cheaper, less wasteful, and more sustainable than animal products. And often people in developing countries are forced to eat a more vegetarian diet just because of the expensive, the cost of meat products. I concede that not everyone in the world can be a full-time vegan, and for those people, reducitarianism or vegetarianism would be a far more noble goal. However, for the majority of us living in the developed world, there is no doubt that switching to a more plant-based diet would bring overall positive consequences. And that's all that I'm going to respond to in this video. The rest is just bullcrap. This was probably the the easiest response video I've ever done because everything that they said was so wrong and it was so basically wrong that it was really easy to refute. It's also frustrating, however, because I know that a lot of people watch this media site and they use it as some kind of source for valuable information. And they're not just misrepresenting data, they're not just sort of misconstruing it, they're just lying. They're making up facts. You know, it's just really, really embarrassing. I hope that if anyone watches me, if they also watch InfoWars, stop watching InfoWars. They're ridiculous, and they have failed miserably to refute veganism. So that's it for that. Also, I never got to tell you guys, but I really do appreciate all of the subscribers that I have gained over the last couple of months. I really do appreciate everyone who likes and comments and subscribes, and give me more feedback on what kind of content you want me to make in the future. If you would like me to do more live streams, if you'd like me to make more response videos, and I will think about what I can do. Of course, I'm limited because I use my webcam. I don't have like an actual camera that I can take around with me while I have my phone. But I'm a little bit limited, but I would like to hear what kind of videos you want me to make. Thank you guys so much for watching, and peace.